Concerted effort.
Yes.
And it's not something we must leave to the
No,
government
no,
alone.
no,
It
no,
should
not
be
at
a
all.
government citizen approach.
Not at all.
Right.
The government are first citizens before they are leaders.
Mm.
You see that. So the values is a responsibility. Inculcating these values into our atmosphere is a responsibility of every and any individual that is a Nigerian.
Okay. How is it that these values have suddenly, like, disappeared or gone into extinction? What exactly could be the reason? Can we blame this on civilization? Can we blame this on social media or westernization?
Now, not necessarily, right? The
Mm.
challenge, the reason why we're seeing a decline in these things is that we are not having a lot of people who one have worked in keeping with these values intentionally
Okay.
and have enough results to say that these things work. Because if you meet the average young person now and tell the person, okay, be disciplined,
Mm.
and they will tell you, I have my mates, I have my colleagues who maybe are not disciplined or are not intentional with what they're doing, or
Right.
are not even people of integrity,
Mm.
and yet they make
They
money,
are thriving.
and yet they are thriving. So when you see such a person and the person gives you their reason, and you who is telling them to maybe be a person of integrity or be disciplined,
Mm.
you barely have results. You see, so that in their people want results. People don't leave what works,
Mm.
right? As long as what you believe in and the values you are keeping to, you are seeing results from them. People want to buy into your ideologies. But
Okay.
when you don't keep to those things and make it work for you, it will be difficult to influence another generation to join what you're doing. You
I
see
agree
that?
with you that our leaders, politically, religious, and what have you, even traditional leaders, are first citizens before they became,
Yeah,
the
leaders.
leaders that we, see them to be right now. But would you say they've done enough in terms of inculcating some of these values?
Each and every one of us, you and I, the leaders, people sitting in government, we haven't done enough. So not just the leaders, every and any one of us, we are yet to do what we ought to do. However, the leaders in their capacity have the resources to
Mm.
influence these things more.
Okay.
But our gospel is to everybody,
Mm.
that everybody has a responsibility and a role to play. For example, we at our place of work,
Mm.
as much as we can, we intentionally, as little as we can, but whatever we can contribute as our own quota
Mm.
to seeing to it that these values are inculcated in people, we do that.
All right.
Yes.
Now, another thing that comes to mind is integrity. Let's start with the political leaders that we have. We actually voted them. We voted for them rather, and now they occupy these offices, elective, positions. And some Nigerians will tell you, especially the youth, for example, if you're trying to discourage someone from beating traffic or violating traffic rules, will tell you, but come on, don't you see the politicians? They actually beat the traffic. So it should be like a top to bottom approach. So it's more like you talk to the leaders first, let them preach or do what they are preaching. All right, let them match words with action. So there is a gap right there, and it brings about the question of integrity.
Okay, so the reason why today's topic we are talking about raising a value driven generation, that is the young people,
Mm.
trying to raise them to become people that have these values inside of them, is because you see the leaders
Mm.
that do some of these things you talk about, right? They are human beings, right?
Okay.
Unfortunately, the way some of them were raised, they didn't have anybody to preach this gospel to.
Oh, really?
Oh yes. Unfortunately, hmm.
So
Train
why
up
why should such people be in
now.
positions
Our
like that?
unfortunately, our system for bringing these people into power doesn't vet all of these things.
Uh-huh.
Unfortunately,
Okay.
there is a lot of sentiment, aside from the corruption part. There
Okay.
is a lot of sentiment to bringing these people into power.
Yeah.
You see, when maybe somebody is from your tribe, or
Mm.
someone is from your religious background,
Mm.
you overlook, with all due respect, because of ignorance, you overlook the deficiencies of this person. Okay, is this person well trained? Does this person, what are the values these persons uphold? You overlook those things and say, oh, he's from my village, he's from my tribe, he's from my church. We go to this, we serve the same, and you check all of that and say, oh, he's our person. Let us put him there. And when he now gets there, he messes the whole thing up.
Right.
You see, so unfortunately, these people are not raised, because you see, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. People don't just come out of nowhere. What you see them doing when they are old, it didn't begin when they got into leadership.
Right.
Leadership was just a means for them to express what they had inside of
So
them.
the first point of call is our family, right? The family, the parents.
The family is the most important mountain of influence. What do I mean? The family is the bedrock, is the foundation. Whatever is raised from the family is pushed into the society. And whatever is prevalent in the society becomes the identity of the nation.
All right.
You see that? So if a thief is raised from a home, maybe the parents were ignorant, they did not check the child, or you don't do this, you don't do that, and the child was raised up in that manner. When the child grows up to become an adolescent, continues stealing. When he grows up to become an adult, he will continue stealing. So a young child who was not mentored, or who was not disciplined, or who was not taught, or these values were not inculcated in him or her, when they get to government, they will not do any different from what they have known all through their life. It's a mindset, it's a programming, it's a paradigm. You see that? So when, as young as they are, and they were raised in that manner, when they grow old, believe me, whether positive or negative, they will not depart from it. They will simply replicate the same thing they have been doing all through their life.
And that could be as a result of strict discipline.
Strict discipline for the now lack of it thereof, lack of strict discipline. Because one of the things we're talking about here is discipline at home.
Yeah.
So if parents don't discipline their children to follow these values, set rules that they should live by, when they grow old, they will listen to the rules of the government.
But when you take a look at the generation of, youth or children that we have now, it's more like you deciding to discipline your child is somewhat relative. What works for you might not work for the other family. So there is a contradiction, whether you like it or not, because we have people being raised from different backgrounds. They have different thought patterns, and then they come out, in the public, and they're trying to make you get sense of why they are behaving, the type of way that they are behaving. So it becomes a very complex issue at the end of the day.
Okay, now, that is why these things are called values. They are called principles, laws, right? Laws are things that work everywhere. For example, the law of discipline, or the value called discipline, or the value called diligence, or religious tolerance, for example, right? Now, religious tolerance works everywhere if taught properly. That two people shouldn't disrespect themselves or fight themselves because they are from different religions. So no matter the background you're coming from, it is an advantage to you if you are taught religious tolerance. Okay. You see that? So these laws, these principles, these values, irrespective of your background, it works.
Okay.
You see that?
All right.
Works. So anybody who is coming from any background and is not self-disciplined, you would obviously fail in life. You would not be successful in life. Even as a person, as a community, as a nation, as a family, whatever it is, it takes discipline to cook. It takes discipline to make your bed.
Right.
It takes discipline to do well in school. It takes discipline to farm. So no matter the background you're coming from, it takes discipline to do well.
Okay.
So these laws work everywhere.
All right, dear listener, I would like to encourage you to be part of the conversation. You can actually call us on 0907-353-0044 or 0908-766-8888. Send a voice note or a message to the WhatsApp portal number on 0909-705-44 and 50. You can as well join the conversation live on YouTube and Facebook, where it is being streamed at the moment. We're looking at a very topical issue that borders on raising a value-driven generation. So far, Mr. Innocent Obas has been able to share his thoughts on the essence of, living what you preach, and it actually translates to integrity and also discipline. Yes, it starts at home. All right, it's not necessarily you punishing your child, but just letting the child get sense of what is right and what is wrong, and the need for the child to stick to what is right. Another thing would be the essence of inculcating the ideals of fairness in our children. But of course, we are somewhat divided along not just religious lines now, but also ethnic or yes, regional lines.
True, and that is why we have to make an intentional decision to teach our children fairness, to teach them social justice. If it is not taught, they will not know.
What's your definition of social justice?
Now, social justice is the ability to not discriminate.
Okay.
Not discriminate, right? Irrespective of your ethnic group or my ethnic group, we have the same opportunities.
Right.
As simple as that. In this nation called Nigeria, we have the same opportunities irrespective of our background. So when you teach your children to be fair in relating with people irrespective of their color, irrespective of their background, then truly you have done well. And unfortunately, this is one of our issues in the country, in the nation. People don't get jobs because they are not from a certain state. You see,
right.
People don't get jobs because of their languages. People don't get jobs because of so many things. But if in most cases, right, the people who don't get these jobs, right, for some of these reasons, for
right.
reasons of being unfair, if you were to give them an opportunity, a lot of them will do so well.
Okay.
But now you see a lot of people, their talents, their zeal, everything is going to waste, all because the so-called people in power are not fair enough to dispense social justice. So that is what social justice is. And it's important that as parents, as leaders, as every and anybody who is in a place of influence, we must try as much as possible to preach this gospel. Teach it to younger people, teach it to your colleagues, your contemporaries, and when you have the opportunity, teach it to your leaders too.
When you talk about teaching and inculcating or instilling values and morals, what are the stakeholders we're looking at here? Is it just the parents, traditional rulers,
Now,
religious leaders?
Now, every and anybody who is in a position of leadership or influence. Now, everybody on this earth is either influencing somebody or is being influenced by another person. You see that? You and I, no matter how you think, as we are in this studio, right? One way or the other, we are influencing each other.
Right.
I'm looking at the way you're speaking intelligently, so wonderful. Now, if I am someone who is intentional, that would challenge me and motivate me to want to speak better. Now you've influenced me.
Right.
You see that? So as touching this, now you are a leader in this field. So you are influencing me. The same way with every other person in every other sphere, right? Leaders in government, leaders in business places, leaders in our religious circles.
Right.
Be an agent of positive influence. Teach people this by first living it and then by saying it.
Okay.
Yes.
Another thing that comes to mind is religious tolerance. Innocent Obasi. The truth is, I know that we have this interfaith group where clergymen from both sides of our religions and faiths come together, the dialogue, but somehow the citizens actually feel that there is more to it. I mean, off camera or in private, have we really been able, this is specifically to our religious leaders, have we really been able to match words with action or to even live by what we preach every Friday, every Saturday, every Sunday, depending on the day that you go to church or the mosque?
Okay, so about religion, yeah? What you have said is very important, it's profound. To some extent, we have been able to live by what we preach, live what we preach, to some extent. However, there are still some areas where we haven't gotten correctly yet.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
But whatever be the case, whatever be the case, the subject we're talking about, religious tolerance. Difference in religion shouldn't bring about conflict between two people, between citizens. With all due respect, right? Only ignorant people, only ignorant, poor, and broke people, right, do not tolerate religion.
Really?
Let me be very honest with you, Ba. Hi, oh dear. People who are doing so well, people who are intelligent enough, people who are business minded, people who are success oriented, business does not stand in the way of moving forward. People who are growth minded, people who are intentional about growth, about moving the country forward, about moving their businesses forward, you don't see them saying, because we are not of the same religion, let's not do business together. No, sir.
Right.
No, you don't see that. So it is usually, and unfortunately, yeah, some of our leaders, this is a weapon for them.
Poverty.
When you find a group of people, with all due respect now, people who maybe are not doing so well financially, introduce religious barriers to them, you see them fighting themselves. Unfortunately.
But is this something we can actually get rid of? And how quickly are we going to get rid of that?
Transformation.
Okay.
This same thing that we're talking about. When you begin to teach, preach this gospel of religious tolerance, telling the people that our problem is not religion. Our problem is not because the diversity of religion. It is not a reason to fight. That we can come together and move forward. It is you trying to shift their thinking, their mindset, their paradigm.
Right.
You begin to influence them to think otherwise. So when this gospel begin to spread more and more and more, people begin to know, okay, this thing we've been doing before is not it too. Let us change our way. There is no need to fight this guy. Let's come together and build a better community instead of fighting ourselves. Then you see that gradually, it begins to spread. Gradually, people begin to know more. We begin to remove ignorance from their minds and teach them a better way of doing things. So that is the way. That is one of the most effective ways of doing it, by influencing them, teaching them.
Right.
No matter who it is, as much as possible, communicate these truths.
You know, with all that you've been able to highlight, one would say that the aim might be defeated, no pun intended, especially when you have a large number of, people who are not self-reliant. Like you said before now, that some of this political class or the elites, they might just want to weaponize poverty and just introduce some barriers along, religious and regional lines just to cause a stir. So when you have people who are very well, like, they're doing well for themselves, are business oriented, and they're heavy on growth, regardless of where the person they're actually going to be dealing with, is from. That would somewhat reduce to a large extent this intolerance, amongst us. But of course, that the poverty rate in the country at the moment is quite alarming.
True. That is still what I'm saying. You see, transformation is one person at a time, right? The work that we're doing, it is not something that's going to happen in one day, right? All of the values that we're teaching now, depending on what the person takes out of our meeting today, right? Someone can hear it and be encouraged to be disciplined in their business,
right?
Start doing better, thereby reducing the poverty rate in the country, right? Someone can decide to listen to what we've said today and make an intentional decision to not fight someone who is of a different religion, religious tolerance. And you see that insecurity, you see that all of these unnecessary security issues in the country begin to decline.
Right.
So it is one person at a time. One person who hears us now make an intentional decision to change their ways, change how they think, change the way they relate with each other, then gradually begins to spread across the country, and the day will come we'll be able to say that Nigeria is truly living in the dream that we have for it.
But should that come with some incentives, even if it's one person at a time?
Incentive in what way?
Maybe not necessarily to induce the person's conscience, but just to encourage the person. some sort of
Okay,
motivation, if you ask me.
now there are avenues where that are done. For example, we are not the only ones doing this, right? There are other people who go out there, street to street, meet the people.
Right.
After talking to them, they give them incentives just to encourage them. Now, all of those are beautiful, right? But this platform now is just speaking with the kind of value we're giving is intellectual value, right? We are teaching them, showing them a better way. So what it does to the person is that it stimulates their thinking. It makes them begin to question certain realities, certain things in their life, and when they get back home, they begin to think, okay, these things I've been doing, what? Because you see, these things are important. Unfortunately, it is difficult for grown people to cut away from the ideologies they grew up with.
Okay.
And that is one of our assignments here. To show a more superior way of living life, to show a more superior belief system.
Okay.
And when the people listen to us, when our dear listeners listen to what we have to say,
Right.
then they are able to make a decision to change. That whatever in their life is not bringing a positive result,
Change, yeah.
they cut it off and begin to change. So that is our assignment. So this one, we might not necessarily need incentive. Here on this platform, we trust that when we teach and we speak and communicate the way we communicate, a person would need to think, would need to with their minds think, what I'm doing currently, is it giving me a positive result, or am I just whiling away my time? If it is not giving me a positive result, then let me listen to what these guys are saying and make a change.
Okay, now let's now talk about patriotism because of time. So let's see if we can, just ruffle feathers on this. Patriotism is one thing that is very important. I mean, there are some Nigerians that will tell you they don't care, especially if the issue on ground does not affect them directly, and it actually speaks volumes. And if you look at it from another perspective, some analysts, some Nigerians in the diaspora and even here at home, they have over time stressed the need for us to try to work on the image and the integrity of our dear country, Nigeria. That's we may have, consciously or not, demonized the image and the system or the nation called Nigeria. How does that speak to patriotism? And how would you now speak to the average Nigerian on the street who thinks that, he or she has not been able to enjoy the dividends of democracy, and for that reason, if anything is actually going to get, go bad or get spoiled, it's none of his or her business.
Now, what you said is true, right? It is difficult to tell an average Nigerian to be patriotic. Patriotism is passion for your nation, love for your nation, respect and honor for your nation. You can only have respect and honor for a person who maybe has your best interest at heart.
Okay.
When you say, people, now this is the thing, perception is the thing, right? When we say Nigeria, what most people see are the leaders. When we say Nigeria, what most people see are the president, vice president, your local government chairman, your local leader, and what have you.
The governor.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that is not the case.
Okay.
Nigeria is you and I sitting in the studio. Nigeria is the listeners, right? So we have to first change that mentality. When we say that people are not patriotic enough, it depends on how they see the nation. When they see the nation as maybe some of our leaders who are not doing so well and they are not benefiting from their government, they would say, okay, why should I be patriotic to a government
or an
that is
administration,
not treating, or an administration that is not treating me so well? But Nigeria is beyond an administration. It is you and I. If we make an intentional decision to love our community, start with our local community. For example, Eagles FM. Eagles FM is a community.
right?
Eagles FM is an extension of the nation, Nigeria. So if you love Nigeria, if you honor Nigeria, then you must make sure that the Nigeria you want to see, the dream Nigeria you want to see, is first replicated in Eagles FM. Is first replicated in your home. So someone who is patriotic, someone who loves and honors the nation, must first show that patriotism in the home. I want to change the mentality. So that when you say Nigeria, you are not saying, because you see, the way the home is, the way Eagles FM, the way our communities are,
Right.
is what is transferred into the nation as a whole. What makes up a nation is, like I said, you and I and our listeners, each and every one of us. So the decisions we make individually is what is collated to become the national identity of Nigeria. You see that? So if each and every one of us make an intentional decision that from today we begin to do what is right, inculcate these values in our hearts, live by them. Why? Because we love ourselves, which is Nigeria, not the leaders.
So in all of this that you said, Innocent,
Yeah.
would you say that the average Nigerian on the street was probably listening at this point in time and probably all geared up to bring about, a positive change,
Yeah.
does not necessarily need some resources, to go about this?
No. Depending on the scale, right? We must all start from somewhere. We can't wait for huge resources to bring about change and influence in the nation. Remember what I told you, right? Leadership is influence, one person at a time. I gave you an example of how you could influence me.
Right.
Now, it didn't take any resource for you to do that.
Absolutely.
We are just in the studio having a conversation. So while you are outside there, maybe you meet somebody, it doesn't take much to talk, to
Right.
speak. Ask somebody, how are you doing? I see, oh dear, I'm sorry, be encouraged. Just encourage the person. It doesn't take a lot of resources. So depending on the scale which you want to influence, if you want to influence a larger scale, then you should prepare for it. Sit down, count the cost, prepare for it.
All right. Time
Yes.
is not our friend, but I don't know if it's possible for you to just maybe wrap up your thoughts in a minute.
Okay, we have said a lot. We have said a
Absolutely.
lot. What I would like to drop as my last talk would be that it is an intentional decision, right? We have to be intentional about the nation, and the nation, like I said initially, is not our leaders. The nation is you and I. So from the little community where you are, begin to influence change, begin to make things better, begin to inculcate these values and transfer it to the younger generation as much as possible.
All right. A key takeaway for me, honestly, would be the point that bothers on religious tolerance. It's very, very important. Now, this is not just the religious leaders, the teachers across, different tiers of education, be it the basic, primary, secondary, and even tertiary. You have a role to play. All right. When you have students in your classroom, for example, caught across, religious lines, how fair are you in terms of inculcating these morals? Are you somewhat sentimental because this person is not actually of same faith with you? So it really cuts across board. And I personally think that if we can really get it rightly in the aspect of, religious tolerance, then we're more like 95%, way through to bringing about the Nigeria of our dreams. But it's always a pleasure having you in the studios. Obasi Innocent, a representative of Generation for Societal Change. Thank you so much
Same here.
for gracing our studios. And to the listener, we missed a couple of calls. Apologies. We're actually working with time today. You might as well leave a message, all right, and would communicate same to Obasi Innocent for subsequent, engagement. Have a playback on this conversation on Facebook and YouTube at Eagles FM Abuja. My name is Omoife Peace Osemere. Good afternoon.